Alrighty, we got Mike Bruesewitz back on the show, and before we talk some Badger hoops, we got some exciting news coming from Mike and his pro career. Mike, update the fans. What are you up to?
I finally returned to the court after about a year and I think three plus months. I finally got back to taking a contract. I came down to Juarez, Mexico. So if you know anything about Johnny Cash, he came over here a few years ago and had a good time and sang about it in a song or two. And I ended up coming down here to take a job for like just a short contract, like a month. Came down to one of the last place teams, so ended up taking a job down here for about a month and back to playing basketball again, which is pretty cool, especially after the couple surgeries I've had and everything. So first game back, I hit 5 threes, which was great. We got a win, so it felt good to be back out there. And just enjoying life as a professional basketball player again, trying to readjust to, playing a bunch of minutes and taking care of my body the way I used to, and kind of readjusting to a new and different Mike. I got to try and play a little bit differently, not so aggressive downhill, but still get to my jump shots, still get to short range jump shots and everything like that. So it's been fun.
Let's go. Let's go. Congratulations. That is awesome. And let's hop into some Badger basketball. Obviously, last time we talked, Wisconsin was on top of the world right before they were ranked number 6. They blew out Michigan State. Everyone was super optimistic, and now in February, they've lost 5 of 6. Mike, before we get into this rough patch, what stood out to you in that Iowa game?
It was kind of one of those things where they took control of the game early, and they looked like the better, more dominant team, and Iowa was just able to find just a little bit of rhythm right there at the end of the second, right there at the end of the first half, and really kind of closed the gap. And you could really see like Wisconsin kind of tightened up, and it was just kind of come down to some toughness stuff, especially inside. Like Iowa's center, the freshman center, he actually had a great game. He kind of took it to Steven Crowther a little bit. Not that Steven didn't have a good game and was going back at him, but it just felt like. Especially, and this happens a lot when you're playing, is momentum changes, especially when you get into some of these bigger arenas. I feel like Iowa's a hard arena to play in. It's not they don't have great shooting lines in there. So, those guys shoot the ball super well in that arena. And it just felt like, after they took control of the game and then they saw like, oh man, these guys came back and closed it up. It felt like some of that kind of pressure to perform at a high level really kind of weighed down on the Badgers' shoulders, everybody. And as they kind of went through the game, and as Iowa, came back in the second half and finally took the lead and ended up, taking a 10-point lead, I think, late in the second half. It was good to see the Badgers respond, but ultimately they just didn't make enough kind of winning plays down the stretch to make it happen.
Oh, no doubt. And yeah, Owen Freeman had a heck of a game for Iowa. I still think, though, I made this prediction after the Iowa game. I said next time Steven Crowell matches up with Freeman, I think he's going to have his way, and I was wrong with that. But I still think a senior Steven Crowell should outplay Freeman, in my opinion. I think that should happen. I think Freeman played too well both times. He's a good player, but I don't know. There's something about a senior versus a freshman. It's not like the freshman is just like this freak of nature. So I don't know. I think Steven, if they meet in the Big Ten tournament, that should be really a thing for him where he should look to outplay him and dominate that matchup. But yeah, for me, I saw some silver linings in the game where Wisconsin's offense has looked like every other Greg Gard or your stereotypical Wisconsin team lately. Wisconsin's kind of fell into that trap where their offense they're missing open shots. Things weren't flowing, but against Iowa, they finally made some shots. So I say that was a silver lining. But what it came down to me was a few things. There were some missed layups in crunch time, missed free throws in crunch time. And the biggest thing for me was Tyler Wall's foul trouble. When Tyler Wall, Wisconsin has proved these last 3 years, when Wall's not on the court or if Wall gets hurt, they can't really function well without him at all. So that's a spot where Wall gets in foul trouble and he's not in there in overtime. Wisconsin's likely not going to win that game. But yeah, I did see some silver lines. I think scoring was a good thing because we haven't seen that much of it from them. But yeah, Mike, What do you think has gone wrong? Now getting into this last 5 of 6, what do you think has gone wrong with this Wisconsin team, and why is offense outside of this Iowa game been so ugly lately?
Well, a couple things, like you kind of pointed on with Tyler Wall. You know, he's kind of a big linchpin for them, and he does it at the 4 spot. And you know, he not only he does it a lot at the block, he gets a lot of his points down low, and does a great job of being able to play isolation basketball, especially on the block where he gets a lot of really good looks. But his flow of understanding, basically changing sides of the floor. He does a great job of being aggressive on dribble handoffs when he gets the ball at the top. And he's somebody you have to really respect. And he makes a lot of great reads out of that. So when he goes to the bench, they maybe bring in Winter. They bring those guys in, and then they move, maybe Steven out to the top. It's not quite the same aggressive action with the dribble handoffs, as well as you can kind of see just like the IQ and the fluidity that happens with Tyler Wall. Like this happened last year, and it's happening again this year, where he is a big piece of their offense. Not if it doesn't even need him to be scoring. It's his activity, his presence, his gravity when he catches the ball. Those are all things that are really hard to kind of measure. But you can see it as the game progresses. It's not an individual possession, but as the game goes throughout, that's a big thing for him. And also, like, I feel like Max Klesmit is hurt, or I'm not sure. He's just not moving as he was when he was going through that stretch. And I don't know if it's maybe he's just in the rigors of the Big Ten. That is something that happens. Is they've had a pretty brutal schedule, and this is the part of the season where you kind of start to break down a little bit. You've had a long preseason. Your body is tired. You've traveled. You've had big and difficult games. You've played against some really good teams. And I feel like the activity level of Klesmit, him coming off of down screens, him coming off of ball screens, is just not quite what it was when, the Badgers were really rolling. He's still scoring and he's, being active, but I remember watching a couple of those games, and obviously the points stood out a lot, but it was the style he was getting his points in, the activity that he was doing. He was flying off of down screens. He was really shooting the ball with a lot of confidence. And that's the other thing is, college guys, as the season go on and as you deal with, even though this is a much more upperclassman team, they're still kind of young guys trying to find confidence, and confidence is such a funny thing. It can go
Yeah.
just like that, in the snap of a finger, and then all of a sudden, 2 games later, it can come right back to you. And I think for them, they're just kind of in this lull of a moment where they got to just try and find their mojo again. You thought they maybe had it against Ohio State at home, and then maybe they were going to get back on the right track after that, and then they go down to Iowa and give up a bigger lead, and that's something that has happened with this team a couple of times, and hopefully they can kind of steer the ship correctly and respond correctly to this. I remember when I was playing, I think I was my junior year. We started off the Big Ten. I think we went 1-2 or like 1-3. We won our first game, and then we lost 3 straight. And then we rattled off like 6 in a row. And I just remember after those three losses, we went to Perkins as a team, and it was just like there's not a lot of pressure. Like we're putting too much pressure on ourselves, and that's kind of something I feel like the Badgers have been doing is that they really beat themselves up. Some of their body language kind of changes, especially after they miss some shots and everything like that. Whereas hopefully they can kind of right the ship, understand that hey, it's just basketball. They're a really good team. They've proven that, and they just need to get back to being a good team and having fun. I think some of that stuff is a little bit easier said than done, especially with the pressures of high level college basketball. But if they get back to having a little bit more fun, I think they would find themselves on the right side of the column.
How much does instilling confidence in your players, like how much of that is a coach responsibility to make sure your players are feeling loose and free? Because I know that's been a criticism of Gard and Bo Ryan back in your day, of just players who are just a little too tense, a little too tight out there. I mean, how much of that falls on the coaching staff, and how much of that is players got to be mentally tough and got to be able to deal with the pressures?
It's kind of 50-50 for me. You got to, as a coach, you got to be able to, instill, like you said, instill confidence in your players, put guys in to be in position to be successful, and allow them to make mistakes, which I think Greg Gard has done. Some of the shots that these guys get to take, and some of the, actions that they run are really good, and guys are being put in successful positions. And the other 50% is just between the ears. Basketball is a really interesting game in terms of, especially when guys get hot. Think about it, even like 3 weeks ago or a month ago, when Klesmit was just on an absolute tear and he couldn't miss. And in his mind, I'm pretty sure, he was flying high, and every shot he thought, he was like, oh yeah, that is definitely hitting the bottom of the net. And now you kind of see it as he shoots the ball, but that kind of swagger is not quite as definitive as it was before. And that's just on the mental aspects of the game. And that's something that, as you kind of go through it and you understand, like, ebbs and flows of basketball happen all the time. And even professionals, lose confidence in their shooting ability. Great example right now is Klay Thompson. Like, Klay Thompson's had some injuries. He's kind of coming back. He's having probably one of his worst statistical seasons, but even then, he still thinks he's one of the best shooters in the world. And that's kind of the mentality you got to have is, doesn't matter how many misses you've had, the next one's got to go in, just because I understand that some of these guys put in quite a bit of work. Talking to some guys, these guys are a hard-working group, and you got to just believe in the work. And sometimes it goes in, and sometimes it doesn't. But that mentality of, man, I'm still really good is it's hard to keep up as a younger player and even as an older guy. But it gets a little bit easier when you get older. So hopefully these guys can find their mojo again. That's the biggest thing. Is maybe it's just a big win here, or a shot goes down, and all of a sudden you're just like, yes, that spark comes back. And especially with young guys, that can change on a dime.
Absolutely, absolutely. And for people who are listening right now, Mike and I are going to finish the show we're going to do a 21st century Badger draft. We're going to pick our starting lineups and our six man. So stay tuned for that at the end. And if you're watching on YouTube, make sure to like and subscribe. And if you're watching over podcast, make sure to download so you do not miss a thing. But Mike, my next question is actually, I'll give you my points. I think the biggest keys for Wisconsin to get back on track is something that's been a silver lining for me is Chucky Hepburn. I mean, last time we talked, you mentioned how you love the way Chucky's been a maestro for the offense, and he's doing a lot of the things really well, even though he's taking a step back scoring. But I kind of, as time has gone on, I'm like, well, right now Wisconsin's consistently had lineups where you have like four guys who aren't threats to shoot. Like, there would be a lot of times where it's just Klesmit, who truly is a proven shooter. Sejan, can you say he's a proven shooter if he's shooting 30%? Like, for me, when Wisconsin lost Blackwell and you consistently have lineups in the year 2024 with four guys who aren't really that big of threats to shoot, I think that's a problem. And I think these guys are capable. I'm just talking about who's proven it. And Chucky, I think a big thing for Wisconsin moving forward is if this team goes as far as Chucky Hepburn goes, because he's obviously going to be on the court. He's invaluable to the team, but if he shoots 25% from three, the ceiling is very limited. So I think for me, the big points is just shooting. I say basketball's a make or miss sport. I think shooting is the biggest thing. Defensively, a lot of people are railing on this team from yesterday, but I saw Iowa hitting a lot of tough mid-range contested shots, and defense could have been better here and there, but I saw a lot of just bucket getters for Iowa making tough shots. It's a make or miss sport. They made more than Wisconsin did. They ultimately won, but and Tony Perkins, man. He's talented, but my gosh, that guy is such a flop. He drives to the hoop. He's like Jimmy Butler. He drives to the hoop with zero intention of making the shot. He just wants to flail his body around and draw fouls and get to the free throw line, which, you like it when your team's doing it, but I don't love it. But I coach eighth graders, and I gave my eighth graders, I want to get to the free throw line more. I gave them the green light to start doing that, to do the Jimmy Butler, and now the Tony Perkins. Just go to the hoop, flail your arms, and let out a yell, and hopefully get to the free throw line. But yeah, Iowa had some bucket getters. Perkins was doing his thing. But yeah, I think so. For me, I want Chucky Hepburn and AJ Storr to combine for 3 threes per game. And actually, they beat that within the first 8 minutes of the game. But I want to combine 3 from those two. And then I want 1 3 from Stephen Crowell and like 0.8 threes per game from Nolan Winter. And I think that's another bright spot, is he made a 3 in these last 3 games. He's 3 of 3 from 3 in the last 3 games. So though those are kind of my things. It's really comes down to just making some more shots, particularly from Storr and Chucky and Stephen Crowell. And I think it's big that they have John Blackwell back. But for you, Mike, now that I'm done monologuing, what are some of the biggest keys for you for Wisconsin to get back on track?
I think you said. I mean, bringing Blackwell back is great because he does come in and change games energy wise. He's really athletic defensively. He's a menace, and he kind of changed some of their stuff because he was getting out a lot in transition. And And for him, that's some of the things they had. And yeah, like you said, they haven't really in the last, I don't know, month. They haven't really had guys knock shots down consistently. I think we can say that Asijan is a shooter, but right now he's trying to figure out how to be more than that right now. That's one thing that is a really big challenge, as a scorer like him, because we saw him as a freshman. He would put up big numbers. He was taking big shots. For him, he is really trying to figure out what else he can do on the floor to stay on the floor, and you can kind of tell like that is racking his brain, and he's being much more of a thinker than a flower. And
Yeah.
that's one thing that happens in basketball is when you start to think and you can't really find a flow or a rhythm, especially as a shooter, it is super challenging. So hopefully he can kind of figure out like, hey, and I understand the coaching staff has been trying to work with him and help him out, especially defensively, and trying to make him into a more complete player than just a catch and shoot guy right now. And that's one thing that as you grow within your game, that confidence grows to be able to make other plays. And that's the one thing right now I see with the Asijan is he's really not being able to prove he can do other things. And defensively, he's had some struggles. Just physically, that's just how some stuff goes sometimes. And yeah, like you
Yeah.
said, the inability to really stretch the floor right now with consistent shooters has really closed down some lanes for Chucky, as well as kind of changed the floor spacing, especially in their pick and roll action. Because earlier they had Klesmit, they had a Asijan who was rolling about a month ago. They had guys that were knocking shots down, and that allowed Crowell and Wall to operate a little bit more inside. And the spacing has just changed because teams have really started to pack the paint, shrink driving lanes and short close on guys and allowing guys to take more semi or half contested threes. And yeah, I think the biggest thing is just finding their confidence within their shooting. And that can be a wide range of things. Sometimes it can be you're lifting too much. Sometimes it can be you got other things in life that are messing with your head, and sometimes it's just that's the way the cookie crumbles in basketball. So
Yeah.
I think you made a great point though. Like as far as Chucky can take them, this team can go. But we just need you have AJ Storr as that main scorer, and right now you're not sure where you're going to go get those extra 20 to 30 points that you need. And at one point it was Klesmit for sure was going to go get 15 to 17, and right now I think his numbers have dipped quite a bit.
Yeah.
So they're really looking for that second scorer consistently, and ultimately that third consistent scorer, because I think Wall can do it, but teams have figured out like, we got to attack him and try and get him out the game early. The earlier Tyler gets out of games, the more difficult it is for the Badgers.
No doubt. No doubt. Yeah. And then one other silver lining kind of from these games that I have, trying to be optimistic. I know fans, it's easy to get very caught up in the moment. But it's a long season. But I would say Crowell. I think Crowell these last two games offensively has been more aggressive, which I think is necessary for Wisconsin. But do you think this Wisconsin team? Do you still think their ceiling is higher than any other Greg Gard team that we've seen so far?
I think it's up there. I think like we said, it's a long season. It's a lot of games, and you got to think about the stretch that they had to go through. They lost to Purdue. They had to go to Rutgers, which is a difficult place to play. Going into Michigan, they kind of and that's kind of the thing. It's a slippery slope, especially with a team that was riding so high and kind of feeling themselves. And I think it kind of happened after that Purdue game that they really realized they were like, oh, okay, that's an elite team. What do we need to get to that? And possibly put a little bit too much pressure on themselves. And I think for them, they just got to find. Like I said, it can take one game where all of a sudden you're just like, oh man, they really got it going again, and you can find a nice little stretch, nice little run, especially as you get in a little bit closer to tournament time. You get a little bit of a break from the how do you say this the ooze of the season, man, like the immortal ooze of just like, man, we go to practice, we go eat, now we go to class, then we got to travel, we got to come back. Like it's a challenge and it's a long grind, and
Yeah.
it can be really fun at times, and then all of a sudden it can be pretty difficult, and they also got to answer a lot of questions for the media. that pressure just kind of keeps building, and hopefully somebody in that locker room just kind of loosens them up, gives them a little bit of sugar, and
Yeah,
takes the medicine go down, and then they have a good time.
no doubt, no doubt. And last time we discussed this, when you were on the show about AJ Storr going pro, what are your thoughts right now on February 18th on AJ Storr going pro versus staying another year?
Still think you should go. Uh,
Okay.
there's not anything that has really shown me otherwise. Guys are gonna. He's still young enough. I think he's a junior or a sophomore this year.
Sophomore.
Yeah, for me, I think he should still definitely leave. He's averaging around six. He's still averaging around 16 or 17 a game. Maybe his shooting numbers
Yeah.
have dipped a little bit. But as a main option in a Big Ten league, as a sophomore, it's definitely one of those things where it's like, man, he made a big jump, and if he stays and comes back for another year, and let's say he has similar numbers, it's kind of hard for me to see like, oh, he's going to jump up to like 24 or 25 a game. I don't know if that's
Yeah,
like
no, that won't happen.
really feasible. I mean, and if he does, then he can guarantee him some first round money for sure. But I think and that's kind of the stigma that happens. The longer you stay in school, the more your game gets critiqued and criticized. And so for me, I still think he should definitely go test the waters. I know the rules have changed since I was there. I think he can either go sign with an agent, or at least he can go all the
Yeah.
way up into the pre-draft workout and get some better information. And so for
Yeah.
him, that's something important for him. And he hasn't shown anything different. Like, he's still super athletic. He's still a menace in transition, and he has the ability to knock down shots and create his own shot at multiple levels. So for me, nothing has really changed. He's still a pro. He's still going to be a pro. And I would, if I was him, I would advise him to get up out of Madison and go and explore and making some money. Even though you can make money in college now, which is a little different.
Yeah, so I'm gonna go on the other side here, where I agree that the NBA, obviously they love youth and kind of ambiguity. But I've seen two guys this last year who, not even just sophomores coming back for juniors, I'm talking seniors coming back for their fifth year. Dalton Connect for Tennessee is a guy who wouldn't have even been drafted this last year. Now he might be a top 5 pick. And then Terrence Shannon Jr., I know you got the sexual assault allegations right now, but before those allegations, I don't know what his stock is right now, but before those allegations, he was looking like a guy who was going from late second round to lottery pick. Where what Shannon did, Connect has just been a menace. He's just been unbelievable all across the board. But what Shannon's done is he got that 3-point percentage up, and he just, I mean, he improved everything. He improved everything, but he went from like 16 to 19 points. But he was the facilitator. He was everything was kind of. I feel like he's taking a little bit of a step back to Domas now, but like he was just such a stud. He was obviously the best player on their team, on a team that was like a top 15, top 10 team. So if, let's say, Storr comes back next year, like improves some ball handling, knocks down his shot a little bit more consistently, and he does that on a team that, let's say, is a top 10, top 15 team. He's a contender for Big Ten Player of the Year. I could see him. I can see him putting himself in a better position than he is this year. Because I look at draft boards, I don't really know how accurate these draft websites are. Where it's like, who are these guys really making these boards? Like, what do they really know? Are they, do they have good sources, whatever? But for whatever reason, I don't see him really close to the first round right now, which is surprising to me. That truly is surprising, but I don't see him close to the first round. And I do feel like if he came back next year, I would not be surprised if he would just be the man on a top 10, top 15 team and improve that stock like Frank Kaminsky did back in the day, from second round pick to clear first round pick. And he can still do that this year. He could have a hot tournament run, and these if he gets better feedback from teams than what these random dudes online are saying on the mock drafts. But I'm starting to think that it would make some sense for him to come back one more year. So that's kind of my take on the contrary.
I mean, the biggest thing for him is going to be a lot of the physicals. What does he actually measure out at? How he can translate some of his stuff athletically into the league. I know he's a big wing, but he's not like a big wing. I think he was 6'5".
No, he's not. He's listed 6'7", but I'm pretty sure he's 6'5".
Yeah, he's not looking like he's not like a 6'7", 6'8" wing. He's more of like a 6'5", 6'6" slasher, which um, that is kind of the biggest difference between levels of professional basketball is the NBA and if you go to the high level European stuff or outside the NBA, it's physical attributes. And so that is something that he may get knocked on. And so if you don't have if you don't have a 7 foot wingspan, or if you're not truly 6'10", 6'11", you're let's say you're listed at 6'7" and you're actually 6'5", those things add up. And especially when you start to play against NBA level talent, like the NBA level talent is big. Like
Yeah.
the league is big. Like we play small ball and all that stuff in the NBA, and like, well, small ball is kind of being pushed away a little bit, and everybody goes, oh well, Draymond Green. Draymond Green is really 6'7", but he has about a 6'11", 7 foot wingspan.
Yeah.
And those are some physical attributes. So for me, I think with Storr, it's you know, can his skill set surpass some of his possible physical limitations? Because I don't know what his scores are going to be, or what his what his physical attributes are going to test out at. So that is one thing to consider. Um, but still, I think for him too is ultimately, if he wants to go play in the NBA, it's the best way to get there is actually by playing the NBA game. Because
Yeah.
as much as I love college basketball and everything, the professional game is vastly different. And the sooner you get into that system and understanding of that mindset, the more likely you're going to pick stuff up early. And not that Greg Gard isn't running good stuff, but 30-second shot clocks changes the games tremendously. That extra 6 seconds per shot clock per possession, you don't really think about it until you actually have to play with it. And it seems like that changes things a lot, as well as just the overall rules of the NBA are so different. So, him changing his mindset to go and play in the NBA, or even if it be, a developmental league distribution, I think ultimately is still best for him individually. But, we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah. No doubt. And there's just the one thing that totally different guys, but just Johnny Davis had to go because he was a lottery pick. He was the 10th pick. Like you have to take that money. Like you can't.
Yeah.
But I his ball handling and his shooting caught up with him, and Storr's not in. As of right now, according to the experts, he's not in that same position that Johnny was to get drafted. So I just I think Storr translates better than Johnny, but I really want the next Wisconsin Badger to find success in the NBA, and I think
Yeah, for
Storr
sure.
will be that
Completely
guy.
understand.
So I think Storr will be that guy. But yeah. So you mentioned Greg Gard. Gard's had this is my last question before we go into our draft. But Gard's had a lot of people over the years saying fire Gard, and the people are back. They're loud. What are your thoughts?
It's really hard. It's really hard to take people seriously because they don't really understand what it takes to like build a program and like the consistency you have. So like, yeah, I understand like they want to have these like top 10 teams, and you always want to be in the hunt for a like a national title and all that stuff. But as college basketball's landscape has continued to change through recruiting and everything like that, I think Greg Gard's done a good job. Like overall, like this is a new paradigm that people are not really understanding how it works. You got to go in and you can recruit kids out of high school, but then you got the transfer portal. So there's like a weird, delicate balance because also guys don't have
Yeah.
contracts. So it's like, all right, cool. Like, hey, I signed with Wisconsin. I'm going to be here for 1 year for sure. And if I don't have a good relationship or I don't like how I'm being treated, like, let me go and see something else. And before when I was there, we had the transfer rule where if you sat, you had to sit out a year and you lost a year eligibility. And I don't think that's correct either because coaches could move. But I think overall, like Greg Gard has done great. He's had to, kind of change some things, how he does stuff. He's had to, evolve in what he's calling, as well as how to recruit guys. And I think he's got a good class coming in. I think this freshman class is super good, is super talented. And if you look at all the other blue blood programs around the country, there's like maybe like five that have had like the sustained success that's been better than Wisconsin over the last like
Yes.
20 years, or even Thurn Guard's run. You know, you guys look at like North Carolina. North Carolina had a couple really good runs in the tournament, but they've also had up and downs years. And you know,
Yep.
same thing with Arizona or Kentucky. Like Kentucky's had some up and down years, and Coach Cal is going to get 5-star All-American kids.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. That's a
you
great
know,
point.
like there is like, yes, we want our team to win every game, and Badger fans, you guys are awesome. You guys are nutty, but you also have some issues. There's a reason the crime rate goes up in Green Bay after the Packers lose. It's okay. We understand. But yeah, I mean, overall, you just got to see like, and this is the thing is, as a college program, you are dealing with 18 to 22-year-old guys. Like these are not like fully developed adults. Emotional like roller coasters happen. Kids are trying like they're still kids, and although they look like grown men, they are not. Mentally, they are not, and there's a lot of pressure on them, and they got to figure some stuff out. And obviously, you know, I think Greg Gard has done some good stuff. You know, he's had some issues with guys like his teams executing down the stretch a little bit more than I kind of anticipated. But also, you know, that's partially coaching. That's also partially the guys he brings in. And I think overall, like Greg Gard's done good. Like, you guys got to relax. Like, yeah, they've had a small skid in the middle of the season, and it's the Big Ten. Like, if you look at other teams around the Big Ten, they're still doing super well. So,
Yeah.
calm, guys. Be calm. Like, let this team play out. You know, I think they will find some confidence here coming up. I think they're going to rattle off some wins here. They'll figure it out. Like, it's not like they're going. You know, they're just like, oh, woe was me, and let's get back on the plane and go hang out at Madison. Like, no, they're going to get some stuff done, and they're going to figure some stuff out and keep working. And, you know, hopefully the results will come.
No doubt. Well said, Mike. Well said. And yeah, once again, I appreciate your time, Mike. It's awesome having you on the show again. But let's get into our Badger draft. So what we're going to do in the 21st century, since the year 2000, we're going to take our starting lineups, and then we're going to draft our sixth man. And I have a quarter here, so you'll just have to trust me for the first pick. But we'll alternate picks.
I don't know, man. That's a lot. That's a lot. All right, that's fine.
Yeah.
No problem.
All right, heads or tails?
Let me get some tails.
All right.
Tails.
Wait,
never
that was
fails.
a bad flip. Pardon me. All right, here we go. It is tails. It is tails.
Tails never fails. So, do I get the first pick, or if I get this, it's like 1-1, or it's like I get the first pick and then you get the next two picks? How are we doing this? We doing a snake draft?
Let's just alternate. Let's just go alternate every pick. So you get first
All
pick.
right. From the early 2000s. Oh,
No!
man.
Oh, gosh. Pardon me.
Oh, do you know who I'm going to take?
No. Go ahead.
I'm going to take Devin Harris.
Frick. there goes my whole there goes like my whole strategy there. All right, fine. I'll take Frank Kaminsky next. Gosh darn it.
All right. I can't remember. Mike Finley was in like 98, right?
I think 95 was when he graduated.
Was he? No, he's not that old, is he? Oh, that's disappointing. He was a bucket getter.
Yeah, no doubt. This is bogus. I was not expecting you to take Devin Harris. Gosh darn it.
You know what? That's okay. You know what we're going to do? We're going to go ahead and take Jordan Taylor with my second pick.
Oh, thank you for doing that. I appreciate it. No disrespect to Jordan. My first guest ever on this show, but I'm going to go with Alonzo Tucker next.
That's fine. You guys are super athletic. It's okay. But I got 2-point guards that can run everything. And then here's what we're going with next. We're going to go get myself John Lure. And you're going to have fun with that because John was a bucket. And I got 2-point guards, and we're running pick and pop with you, and you're going to have to deal with it.
All right. Well, if you take John Lure, I am going to go with let's see. I'm going to go with Johnny Davis. And before I make this pick, I want to tell the fans who may have forgotten, Alonzo Tucker and Johnny Davis were both runners-up for National Player of the Year. You can't say that for any of Mike's guys so far. So, Mike, carry on.
It's okay. It's no problem for me. You know what we're going to take next? We're going to take ourselves some good old Sam Decker.
Okay. So what do you got right now? I got Johnny, Alonzo, and Frank. Let's go. You got Devin. You got Decker.
Decker,
Okay.
and John Lure.
JT and Lure. Okay. Okay. Well, clearly I need a point guard and a shooting guard. Oh gosh. I had this whole strategy planned out that I was really excited
I
about.
just ruined it, didn't I? I just came in and
You
ruined it
did.
all.
You did. Okay. Let's go. All right. You know what? I'm gonna go with a guy from this year's team. Give me AJ Storr.
Sounds great. Sounds great. And I'll be next. I'm going to go ahead and take Nigel Hayes.
Nigel Hayes. All right. We got Nigel Hayes off the board. I'm gonna take Trayvon Hughes at my point guard spot.
Okay.
So
All right. Got
here's how
six.
this match stacks up so far. Our starting lineups for me at point, I have Trayvon Hughes. Mike has Devin Harris. At shooting guard, well, you know what? You can say Jordan Taylor or Devin, whoever plays a point. But then we got AJ Storr and Jordan Taylor matching up. Then at the 3, we got Johnny Davis and Sam Decker. 4, you got Alondo Tucker and Nigel Hayes. Tucker for me, Nigel Hayes for Mike. And then center, I got Kaminsky. He's got Lure. So Trayvon Hughes, AJ Storr, Johnny Davis, Alondo Tucker, Frank Kaminsky for me. And for Mike, he's got Devin Harris, Jordan Taylor, Sam Decker, John Lure, and Nigel Hayes. And we also got to pick our 6th man. So who's your 6th man, Mike? 6th man.
Oof. My 6th man. I'm probably going to need another big. It's really what I'm thinking about. But there's also just the idea of bringing in like another bucket getter and an absolute killer is Kirk Penny. So
Kirk
I think
Penny. Oh, that's a good pick.
I'm going to go with Kirk because Kirk was a bucket. Like,
no doubt.
Defensively, we're going to struggle a little bit, and that's okay because I have 2 point guards that we can run pick and roll on both sides, and we got just a lot of optionality. I'm letting you know, like there's a lot of options here for us where we want to go offensively. It's gonna be tough.
Yeah. Well, Penny so what I wanted to do, my starting lineup, I almost drafted Penny over Storr, but what I wanted my starting lineup to be was just like ridiculous athleticism. I was going to go Devin at the point. I wanted Storr at the 2, Johnny at the 3, Alondo at the 4, and then I was going to go Marcus Landry at the 5. He was
I
going to be
thought
my
about
5 man.
Marcus. I thought about Marcus as my 4-man, but I liked I felt like Marcus wasn't quite as an accomplished 3-point shooter as Nigel was, and in a game where we're going to play a lot of space and we're going to play a lot of pick and roll with John Lure, it's tough.
Well, Mike, you might need to go to Stat Reference right now because I look up Nigel Hayes 3-point percentages last 2 years versus Marcus Landry's, and I don't think you'll like what you see. But
was it worse? Was it worse? I can't remember.
Yeah, I think Nigel's under 30. I think he barely got to 30 his senior year. Then his junior year, he shot like 26% from 3. But sophomore year, before he changed up his form, he shot 40% from 3.
He shot the ball super well as a sophomore, too, I remember.
Yeah, Landry, I think his senior year was like 39%. But I got to make my 6-man pick. And I'm going to go with Brad Davison, the 3-point king at Wisconsin, the ultimate glue guy. Give me Brad as my 6th man. So I'll say it one last time for the fans, and then we'll have our closing statements. I'll let Mike start, but the lineups are going Trayvon Hughes, AJ Storr, Johnny Davis, Alondo Tucker, Frank Kaminsky for me, and then off the bench we got Brad Davison coming, and then for Mike, he's got Devin Harris and Jordan Taylor at the guard spots. Sam Decker at the 3, Nigel Hayes at the 4, and John Lure at the 5. Let us know who you think is going to win this matchup. But Mike, your closing statement on why your team beats my team. And then he's got Penny off the bench as well. But Mike, why does your team beat my team?
Overall, I said it before, it's because I can run pick and roll on 2 different sides of the floor. So I can bring it up, and whatever you want to do, however you want to try and do your pick and roll coverage, Devin is going to be Devin's a problem defensively. Devin is at the point of attack. He's a problem defensively, which helps us out. So we can actually slide him over in a couple of different areas. And then, I feel like my 2 guards are just such great decision makers. So even if this game comes down to, last possessions and everything like that, I'm going to get the exact shot I want where I want it and who I want to shoot it. We're going to get great looks the whole time. And, like I said, optionality. We can switch a lot of stuff. Nigel can switch a lot of things. John can. He wasn't the most elite defender, but that man was a problem offensively. I feel like he would hold up well against Frank and possibly, get Frank into foul trouble as well. So there were some things that with my team that I feel like, IQ wise, we're pretty elite.
Sure. And for my final argument before we wrap up the show, I'm going to say I have two runners up for National Player of the Year in Johnny Davis and Alonzo Tucker. And Alonzo Tucker only was run up for National Player of the Year because there was this guy named Kevin Durant putting up ridiculous numbers at Texas. And then at center, I have the National Player of the Year in Frank Kaminsky. And no one on Mike's team, no offense, Mike, but no one on your team was close to contending for a National Player of the Year. So that's all I need to say. My team is freakishly athletic. Johnny's athleticism gets forgotten about a little bit. Storr's got that 40-inch vert. Tucker's got that 40-inch vert. And we got Brad coming off the bench to bring the grit and the toughness. So that's why. And then Trayvon Hughes. Let's not forget about Trayvon. He was an absolute dog on the perimeter.
Point of attack is good. Point of attack was good. I like it. I'm going to go ahead and say, you got National Player of the Years and runner-ups and all that stuff, but you only get one ball.
Yeah.
You only get one ball.
That's a good point. So, all right, Mike, we'll let the fans decide. But, Mike, thank you so much for coming on I believe this is your third time on now. I really appreciate it. And, congrats on getting back onto the court. That's a hell of an accomplishment with the injury you had. So, congrats on playing really well in your return. So, keep it up and let's stay in touch.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Matt. I always enjoy coming on and speaking Badger basketball with you. And hopefully we can see these boys turn it around and have next time I get to come on, we talk about how deep they went into the tournament and everything like that. So
let's go.